it's a beautiful November's day in 2013. When Wilkie came in 1850, he also probably had a beautiful day because it was August. Well, he'd stopped off on his travels to Land's End to go and visit the famous Logan's Rock. Wilkie Collins hired himself a guide who showed him the way to get to the rock. Following his guide, Wilkie Collins said they covered some perilous ground, but all of a sudden they saw the rock, a big granite slab balancing in its middle. Wilkie's guide told him to put his shoulders under Logan's Rock, like this. He told him to push up with all his might, and then back down, and push up, and then leave it an instant, and then do it again, push up, release, push up. Then all of a sudden you could step away and you would see the rock rocking like a baby's cradle, 3 inches swing on it. And believe it or not, that was 85 tons of granite moving at your will. But sadly, when Wilkie was here, the rock didn't rock as much as it used to. Because earlier, in the April of 1824, Hugh Goldsmith arrived here. He was a son of poet Oliver Goldsmith, and he was the captain on a cutter that was sailing nearby. Now, he'd heard that no human force could overturn the Logan's Rock, so he decided that he was going to get a crew of 10 hand-picked men and bring them here with levers. And then he would put them underneath, and all of a sudden, he would shout to his crew, "Heave!" And the rock went over. 2 things saved the rock. Firstly, while the lieutenant and his crew were making their way to the Logan's Rock, they were seen by agricultural workers in nearby fields who thought it looked a bit shifty. So they decided to follow the lieutenant and his men, and then they hid behind a wall and to see what he was up to. Farm workers couldn't believe their eyes. They watched as their precious rock was hoisted into the sea. And secondly, luckily the rock had not fallen down into the sea, but had caught on a ledge halfway down. The labourers went to see the Lord of the Manor, Sir Richard Vivian, and told him what they had seen. Wilkie Collins wrote, "The indignation of the whole county was aroused. People who believed that Logan's stone was to have been balanced by the Druids, philosophers who believed that it was produced by the eccentricity of natural formation, ignorant people who cared nothing about Druids or natural formations, but who liked to climb up the rock and rock the stone whenever they passed it by, tribes of guides who lived by showing it, innkeepers in the neighbourhood who had brought their customers by hundreds, tourists of every degree who were on their way to see it, all joined in the general clamour of execration against the overthrower of the rock." Something had to be done. The Admiralty told Hugh Goldsmith that unless he put the rock back, his Royal Navy commission was in danger. Equipment was borrowed from Plymouth dockyards, and the Admiralty donated £25, but most of the cost fell on the shoulders of Hugh Goldsmith. On the 2nd of November at 4:20, thousands of spectators gathered, and Logan's Rock was hoisted back onto its plinth to rock again. The final cost of putting the rock back was £130, which was paid off by the lieutenant just before he died, and he paid it off with interest. But sadly, the rock never rocked the same again. I'm going to be leaving my Walking with Wilkie card for this story. Thank you. After his climb to Logan's Rock, Wilkie Collins came back to the pub here at Treem to spend the night before he continued his journey to Land's End the next day. I think it's time for a beer now, don't you, Branding?